Rodney here again with Zivivi Entertainment, and upon request I'm going through my video game consoles and my setup. I love that you want to see my collection, and I'm always happy to share it with you. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to get updates on future videos. Let's get started. First, I want to show you my FrameMeister. It was a little pricey, but I figured if I wanted a better picture from my retro games, I needed to get it. I use this for most of my consoles that don't have an HDMI, and the picture is generally fantastic, especially for consoles that support RGB out of the box. I record my videos using this Elgato HD60 that connects to the FrameMeister via the HDMI out. That way I can record anything coming from the FrameMeister. The USB from the Elgato connects to my laptop, which makes it easy to move to my custom arcade machine if I need to record stuff from that. The arcade machine runs off a Raspberry Pi that I installed. It works great if I need footage from games I don't own. The first console is the Atari 2600. I own two of these. I bought the first one to play all the Atari 2600 games that I was buying from McKay's, and then my aunt gave me the second one. I don't keep either one hooked up because it's very rare that I play them. Next is the NES, and I own a few different consoles for it. The first is the original NES, but not my original. My original NES broke years ago when I was younger. However, with this NES, one day I started experiencing wavy lines on the screen, and from what I understand, it's due to broken capacitors. That's why I bought this console, the 8-bit HD video game system from Amazon, for around $30. I had to use it recently in my Top Gun video because I couldn't get any sound from this next NES console from that particular game. That leads me to my next console, the Retro USB AVS, and it is definitely my favorite way to play the NES games, and I would consider it the best option available for anyone. It produces a true HD signal, which means I don't have to use the FrameMeister and mess with a bunch of settings when I want to play NES games. I can also use my old NES controllers with it. The other NES console I own is a top loader. And I know it doesn't look like a top loader, and that's because this system broke years ago and I was being an idiot and tried to fix it. I didn't have the correct tools and destroyed the case getting it apart. After fixing it, it still works, and in the past I would use it to test games I bought from Europe since it doesn't have the region check on it. Next is my Dreamcast. This is my original purchase back when I was in college. I bought the tennis game for it, and my college friends and I played it a lot. I currently have it hooked up via a composite cable through this switch, and then it runs through the FrameMeister. I understand there's some other options out there, but I haven't looked into them too much, but I definitely plan to. These are my Nintendo handhelds. I have here the Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Nintendo 3DS, and Nintendo DS. All of these are my original purchases when they were new. I rarely play the Game Boys, but I do play my DS and the 3DS games sometimes, mainly because of the JRPGs such as Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. Next is my GameCube, which is hooked up via a composite cable through the same switch as the Dreamcast, and it also uses the FrameMeister. I'd rather have a component cable, but they're super expensive, ranging anywhere from $200 to $300 and more. I recently bought the Game Boy Advance attachment, and my first game I plan to play on it will be Metroid Fusion. This is my Nintendo 64, which is the original from my childhood. I also own a green and purple Nintendo 64 that I found on a Facebook seller group a couple years ago. My college friends and I played Mario Kart, Mario Party, and Perfect Dark like crazy in my dorm room. Sadly, I only have the ability to hook this up via a composite cable through the same switch as the Dreamcast, and then I use the FrameMeister. I really wish I had an RGB or HDMI Nintendo 64 because the picture isn't that great with the composite cable. Hopefully in the future I can get one. Here's my Nintendo Switch. I honestly haven't played it much since I beat Zelda Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. I see a lot of people collecting for it, and I probably should look into what they're collecting and see if there are some exclusives I might be missing out on. My PlayStation 1. I have an entire video on how I obtained this console and why I love it so much, so definitely check that out. Thankfully it supports RGB out of the box, and that's exactly what I have it hooked up to. My FrameMeister works great for this system and produces an awesome picture. Basically, the RGB cable runs into this RGB switch, and that runs to the FrameMeister. Anytime I switch between other consoles that use RGB, I set the switches here and then change the profile on the FrameMeister. This is my original PlayStation 2, and the other one is the PlayStation 2 Slim that came with a box of games I bought at a yard sale for $100. I have a couple ways to hook this up. First, I own the official component cable which I use with the FrameMeister to upscale the picture, and I have this HDMI converter I got off Amazon. The HDMI converter works fine and it's nice since I don't have to mess with 5 different cable ends, but you have to run a USB cable to another USB power source for it to work. Some people have said you can use the PlayStation 2's USB, but that wouldn't work for me. The picture doesn't look much different from the component cable from what I can tell. My PlayStation 3. I originally bought this to play Demon's Souls, and it came with Uncharted, which was a lot of fun. Probably obvious, but it hooks up via an HDMI cable. I own both the original PlayStation 4 and the Pro version. I bought the PlayStation 4 because of Bloodborne, and I bought the Pro version because I thought it may be worth it for the VR, but honestly, I don't see a huge difference between them. The VR reroutes the PlayStation hookups through this box and requires USB power from the PlayStation itself to power it. This is my Sega Game Gear. I bought it because I was getting a bunch of games for it from McKay's. However, when I got the Game Gear, the sound didn't work. I own 2 Sega Genesis, and thankfully these consoles support RGB out of the box. I run it through the same RGB switch as the PlayStation 1, and it uses the profile on the FrameMeister. I would go as far as to say the FrameMeister makes this system look better than any other system, but that's just my opinion. This is my Sega Master System. I don't play it that much and don't generally keep it hooked up. It does support RGB out of the box, and the Genesis 1 RGB cable will work with it. I definitely need to play this more in the future. This is my original Super Nintendo, discolored and all. One of the rare Nintendos to actually support RGB out of the box. I run it through the same switch as the PlayStation 1 and the Sega Genesis. The picture looks great and I love playing this console. Also, as a side note, I strictly use this ASCII pad controller and it's held up all these years. I definitely need to get another one just in case this one ever breaks. The TurboGrafx 16. Like the Master System, I don't keep this one hooked up. It does support RGB out of the box, but if you don't want to mod it, you need a booster box. It runs around $80 to $90. Another system I definitely need to play more of in the future. The Wii. This is my original Wii, which I don't keep hooked up because it's broke and won't read the disc. This system has seen a lot of bowling tournaments, Super Mario games, and was used as a scale in my house via the Wii Fit board for years. I have another Wii that does work, but I keep it at my parents' house in another state for when I go visit. I do own the component cable for the Wii, which works great. The Wii U. Finally, Nintendo started supporting HDMI out of the box with this console. I haven't played it in forever, but when I was, the girlfriend and I were playing games such as New Super Mario Bros., Super Mario World 3D, and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Hands down though, my favorite game for this console is Pikmin 3. I highly recommend it. This is my very first Xbox. I have this system hooked up via component cables and it uses a profile on the FrameMeister. It actually looks pretty good too. My Xbox 360s. I love this console, and a couple of these have been through a lot. My original one here I gave to my brother, and as soon as I did, it got the ring of death. He sent it off and got it repaired, and it still works to this day. When he moved, he gave it back to me since he upgraded to Xbox One. This one, the Xbox 360 Slim, won't read disc at all. I have taken it apart and tried to repair it so many times I can't count. Then there is this Xbox 360e, which has been the best Xbox 360 I've owned. It works great with no issues. I keep it hooked up downstairs on my big screen and always have a game in it. The girlfriend and I have played through a lot of LEGO games on the system, and I'm sitting around 76,000 achievement points. The last one is my Xbox One. I've played most of the new games from the last 4 years on the system. I don't love it like the Xbox 360, but it's still fine, and honestly, I enjoy that I can continue working on my achievement points. That's all the consoles I own and how most of them are set up. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask in the comment section. As always, don't forget to subscribe because it really helps my channel grow. Thanks to all my current subscribers and your support, and click the thumbs up if you like the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.